today I'm going to review two drives that for some reasons I find quite interesting. First, I'm going to take a look at this old double-speed Vertos CD-rom that was not compatible with Windows 95. And second, we will explore the Pioneer A03 DVD recorder, one of the first DVD recorders and the one that made DVD authoring affordable. Let's check them out. The Vertos 300 SSD is the first CD-ROM drive that I ever owned. This was in 1994, a time when CD-ROM was the big novelty and everything going on around it was just awesome. It had double rotation speed, which means that could read at 300 kilobytes per second, and that was good enough for running most of the software of that era. The drive had a nice design and offered a dedicated buttons panel to play CD audio directly without the need of additional software, and that was especially handy in a time where things still were running on DOS. But this unit also had a problem, and it's that it never worked under Windows 95, so I had to actually replace it for another. Why this happened? Well, I have a theory, but we are gonna look at this later. On the other hand, the Pioneer A03 was the first of a kind. Previously, both DVD-R writers and the DVD-R media were prohibitively expensive, costing $7,500 or more for a reader and $60 for each disc. This third generation of drives was able to read and record 4 different formats of media, and it allowed for the first time to create your own home DVD movies. The price was around $1,500, and this was a blessing for those who work with digital video. The appearance of the drive was no different than any other CD drive. Perhaps the fan incorporated is the only difference we would notice. Pioneer also sold its own recordable media at a price between $15 and $25 per disc, something that changed rapidly after the DVD recorders became mainstream. Discs were expensive, and if the recording failed or something went wrong, you knew that you just sent to garbage a $20 bill. What times. The A03 was able to read and rewrite CD and DVD at a maximum speed of 8 velocities for CD and double velocity for DVD. However, soon later it was needed a firmware upgrade because of a bug that could damage the drive if used with the new 4-speed disc. From there, the drive was forced to record always at 1 speed, and this was a big turn down, with the only alternative to upgrade to the newer A04 model, and of course spend another $1,000 on it. But let's see them in action. I'm going to turn on the drives and see if they still work. I will just connect the power and insert an audio disc. This CD-ROM may need some help to open. This is due to some dirt on the mechanism, and I already had this problem back in the days. Once the disc is inserted and I press play, the LED will blink indicating that the disc is playing. If I connect the headphones, actually it works perfect. And I can navigate through the disc as any other CD player. Actually, I'm thinking that it would be quite simple to convert this drive into a CD player, but that will be a project for another day. I'm going to try the same with the Pioneer. The drive will turn on normally. It's quite slow detecting the disc, and a green LED light will indicate that we have compatible media. However, same as modern drives, I can play the disc automatically. The fan stays on at all time when the disc is inserted, making it somehow noisy. Size-wise, both drives look almost identical, but the Pioneer is considerably heavier. The next thing I want to do is to test them in a computer. To do so, I will use this computer that I have, especially set up for experiments. This is an AMD Athlon at 2 GHz and 1 GB of RAM. It has x86 architecture, so it can run basically anything from DOS to Windows XP. To be able to install the CD drives, I need to take out first at least one of the ones that is already installed. This configuration with a 525 drive may not make much sense to you, but again, this is a testing and experimenting computer. When trying to connect the Vertos CD drive, I noticed that the IDE cable always has one block pin in order to identify the orientation of the cable. However, the drive has all pins, so there is no way this will work. Compared with the drive I just removed, see how it has the missing pin. Perhaps this is due to the drive being too old, and at the time this was not standardized yet, so I'm going to just basically make a hole in the connector. That pin is not used in the IDE interface anyway. Remember that I told you that this drive didn't work on Windows 95? Well, I'm curious to know what happens with Windows XP. So, after inserting a disk, the surprise is that it works perfectly. Why? Well, I assume the issue was a driver problem. Getting drivers prior to the internet was a difficult task, and this drive had been in market for years before Windows 95, so they were not provided in the disks. But I'm happy to see that now it just works fine, other than the slow speed, of course. It took 1 minute to copy a 17 MB file. And when I try to copy the whole disk, it will take about 70 minutes. That may sound crazy today, but in the 90s, CD-ROM disk had actually more capacity than most of the hard drives. So that speed was enough. And why did you want to copy the whole disk anyway? But one thing is true, it is very silent. Let's move on to the second drive. I will try the same disk, and as you can see, the same 600 MB of data will take about 7 minutes to be transferred. Now I will try to record the disk and see how long it takes. When a recordable media is inserted, the LED will turn orange. Due to the firmware update, we only can record at one speed. This turned out to be too slow in the day-to-day video production, forcing to upgrade to a newer model. To record 2.5 gigs of data took more than 30 minutes. And that's everything for now. Kind of useless drives today, but I enjoy to make them work a little, as they are part of history and a clear example of how we evolved since then. Well, I hope you enjoyed this video, and see you next time.